Let's say hello to our co-host. He is the Admiral, Bill Stubblefield. Bill.
Rob, it's great to be here on this beautiful day. It's going to be hot.
Former, and in studio too.
In studio,
yeah.
Yep.
And Bill also former president of the Berkeley County Commission. Also the Badger, Delegate Michael Haidt is here as well. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Robert.
Rob, you know, normally it takes a few minutes for someone to get used to a saddle. The Badger came in, the saddle's already worn. He's ready to go. It's going to be an interesting day.
It's every Friday I come in here and sit down and say hi to everybody, and Bill starts stirring the pot as soon as I sit down.
Big swizzle
trying to get me riled up, and it works every time.
Except this time, it's working on me. so I'm going to have to watch my cool today.
We should call Bill the Big Swizzle.
Yeah.
He's just a big old swizzle stick. Yeah. Let's welcome in our guests from the Berkeley County Commission, John Hardy, former delegate. Good morning, John.
Hey, good morning. Yeah, it's been on fire in here this morning. I mean, Height's over there talking about, hey, you ever met somebody who's an idiot but doesn't know they're an idiot? And Bill went, yeah, I know one sitting pretty close to me. And that started the morning.
Yeah.
Well,
do any of us know that we're an idiot?
I guess not.
Yeah.
I guess not. Hey, to jump back to that radon, the radon deal there, Bill's got me.
Bill, is that your phone?
Is that me?
Usually it is.
Yeah. There we go. To jump back to that radon.
It was me, John.
That's all right.
Like I said, do the people who are idiots know that they're idiots?
That radon grant, that was a grant that Berkeley County had received for, a long time, because Berkeley County has a lot of radon. Well, in someone's infinite wisdom in Charleston, that grant went from being just a grant that was divvied out to the counties that had radon till it became a competitive grant, and you had the right to try to get that grant, unbeknownst to a lot of counties. So for about a year's period there, that grant got redistributed, and that money went to counties that didn't even have radon. So I had to step in, and there's actually an office of radon in the state of West Virginia, and we had to go back in and redirect that grant back to Berkeley County. But that's just kind of what happens sometimes in government. Same thing has happened to Bethany House. You guys have heard me talk about.
Yeah, what's the story and the latest
House.
on that?
Well,
John?
Bethany House had received wait a minute, let me get the numbers right here. $230,000 grant from DHHR to be able to run. And for those that don't know what Bethany House is the only place in Berkeley County where women who are with children who are in crisis have a place to go. So they have 32 beds up there, and they have places for women and children to go who are living in crisis, and to get them off the streets, get them out of the woods, and for some odd reason, DHHR changed the funding for that, moved it to an independent outside organization, coalition to end homelessness. And that grant was redirected. So we've been working really hard to try to get that directed back to Bethany House. I've been working with the mayor, and the county commission has been working, and the county has come up with some money. The city has been gracious and come up with some money, and we are working with Tim Zaya over to the Day Report Center, because some of the women that are in those facilities use the Day Report Center. So we're trying to find some funding sources there, and we're working really diligently with the state trying to get some of that money redirected back to Bethany House. So there's been some success with that too. So I tell you, this money that gets directed to these agencies, you got to stay on top of it.
Hey, let's talk impact fees here, John. We got an update from you, I think, 2 weeks ago, also from Steve and Eddie from the County Commission, Vice President and President, respectively. Have you finalized what you're going to do with those yet?
So what we did is we came up with an arbitrary number because we have to have a number for a jumping off point. So we've got to be able to say, this is where we're going to start. This is where we're going to draw our figures from. So we came up with an arbitrary number of $5,500 per resident. We have had 2 public hearings. On Tuesday at 10 o'clock, we had a public hearing, and Tuesday at 5 o'clock, we had a public hearing. The morning one was not very well attended. The afternoon one was better attended. There was a lot of questions asked, and everyone was very respectful, and really it was just a kind of a learning experience, people trying to figure out answers to questions of how the money will be spent, how it will be collected, who will receive it. So there was some really good back and forth on that. But $5,500 per residential home is the jumping off point. That's not set in stone.
And before you go further, John, someone just tuning in, I don't want to panic them. It's not $5,500 per existing residential home. It's per newly built residential home.
Yes,
correct?
sir. This is on a new residential construction. If you are living in your home, this does not affect you. If you are putting an addition on your home, this does not affect you. This is for new, out of the ground residential construction. There will also be an impact fee for commercial. We're still working through that, and that's going to be based on square footage. So obviously, it'll be a certain rate up to a certain square foot, and then maybe as the building grows larger, the percentage may come down.
This is for projects that begin after July 1.
Well, we have not settled on that yet, so we still working through the process. This is a very long process to work through with our consulting company, Titchler and Bice, who is kind of the nationally known organization that deals with impact fees. They're always collecting data from us. We're trying to give them as much data as they can have to put together these formulas. We have to come up with our comprehensive plan on how we're going to spend the money for our capital project. So there's still some work to be done. So we don't really have a set date. We're thinking maybe before winter. We don't really know yet. We're just kind of working through the process, and when we get to the end, we get to the end.
Can you backdate?
No, we cannot do that.
Will you be having an evening meeting for those who work during the day and can't make it in the afternoon or morning?
We had one on Tuesday at 5 o'clock. And
more evening than 5 o'clock.
We're going to have another public hearing on July 2nd, and I do believe that one's at 10 o'clock in the morning. But if we need to hear more public content, or public needs to weigh in on this, we're completely transparent. We're really more than willing to listen to what anyone has to say. I was a little surprised in that we did not receive a lot of people came in and talked in favor of the impact fee. We had a lot of developers, and I won't even say the developers were not in favor of it. They just wanted information. Most of the developers were very respectful of the process and just really wanted to make sure they had the information.
Bill?
Any real pushback from folks against impact fees, John?
A few developers have, and I won't even say pushback. I will say really just want to have information. We've had, I think we had 3 or 4 pretty good sized developers come in, and they did not have a lot of pushback. Obviously, they're not happy about it, but they were very respectful of the process and really just wanted to have the information of how this was going to work and how those dollars are going to be spent and how those dollars are going to be collected.
I know you're still working out how much is going to be collected, but as far as being spent, do you have a percentage for the various categories that you can share?
Well, everything goes in silos, Bill, so it's very silo central. So what is collected for parks will have to be spent for parks. What is collected for the school board will have to be given to the school board. And there is funding numbers for those. I by no means have those numbers in my head, but it's very siloed, and so how the money is collected is how the money will be spent.
Okay, and I realize you do not have the numbers on your head, but percentage-wise, is the bulk of the money going to the schools or the parks or general administration? Do you have some sense of the rough amounts?
Yeah, so we funded what we could charge for the parks was funded at 100%. What we could charge for the sheriff department was funded at 100%. What we could charge for fire and EMS was charged at 100%, and then what the school board got was a smaller percentage. And when I say 100%, it was 100% of what we are allowed to charge. Like I think the sheriff's department was and don't hold me to these numbers, please, was about $390 per home. The Parks and Rec was a certain amount per home, and I have not committed those numbers to memory because they have been constantly changing.
Is there a silo or category for administration?
There is. There's a silo for what is called county administration. We can use those for capital improvement projects in areas of growth. So, and we're still working through that capital improvement project plan, and that's one of the things that we'll have to have done before we can implement this. So it's a tedious process, and it should be. But I think most of our residents here in the Eastern Panhandle or in or in Berkeley County are happy with an impact fee because it is growth paying for growth. It is a direct effect of people moving to the county, building new homes, and we'll have those funds to use to put towards those 5 different categories that they fall into.
Yeah, I agree with you, John. I don't think I've heard anyone that's against impact fees or against the concept of impact fees. They may quibble on how it's distributed, but they're not going to. They're not disagreeing with the concept at all.
Yeah, I agree, Bill. I mean, like I said, some of the developers are not happy about it, but they've just really want to know the information, and they've been very respectful through the whole process.
Mike Hornby said in a comment on our Facebook page that he has gotten some pushback from some of the developers. Not the developers, but about the commercial rate that possibly could be.
We have not even
developers.
We haven't even set the commercial rate. We don't even know what that rate's going to be yet. We're still working through that process with our consulting firm. So
yeah, the exact quote is, the commercial rate seems really excessive from the feedback I'm getting, but you're saying that rate's not even set yet.
No, I mean, I've heard numbers of like $0.25 a square foot, but I mean, don't quote me on that either, because that is so fluid. That is all still working. We're still working through all that.
Cindy Stegmeyer, I have a piece of ground so if I have a piece of ground for a while and now decide to build a house on it, would I pay the impact fee even though I already own the land?
Yes, you will. It is charged during the permitting process for the home.
Hope that answers your questions.
Yeah.
You said earlier that this was an arbitrary number. That $5,500 was an arbitrary number. But then you elaborated with the silos, as Bill says, and says there are max numbers. I'm assuming those are set in code of what you can charge in different categories. And is it the group that you're working with that's coming to you and saying this is what we suggest that you charge in these different categories to get to the numbers you want? And is that how you come up with the $5,500?
Yeah, so that's absolutely correct. So Titchler and Bice, who is the consulting firm, they extrapolate a bunch of information from the county. All different types of information, from median home prices, income, to vehicle. There's all these different factors that they put in, and then they come up with a formula, and they give you a max amount that you can charge for each one of those silos. And the max amount for all those silos together was like $11,642, but we're nowhere near that. We're more around the $5,500 to $5,000 is where we're going to be. Now, understand these impact fees can move up and down. We can move them down or up each year when we set our budget, and then also any money that is collected has to be spent within. It's either 3 years or 5 years. I'm not clear on that, but that money has to be spent or it has to be returned. So we're going to start what I think is probably a conservative number, around somewhere between 5,000 and 6,000 is probably where we're going to be. Mm-hmm. We'll start conservatively and see how that works, see how that affects the building in the county. I don't believe that it slows the building in the county at all. It may a bit. We're hoping to try to just kind of control some of our growth, but also be able to pay for those services, because everyone wants services, and services cost money. So,
and now Jefferson County is on the higher end. Jefferson County will be the higher end of impact fees.
Well, they just raised theirs.
Yeah,
so they had lowered
theirs for a long time, and now raised them.
They'd moved their school back to $1, okay. and now they've moved back up, and I don't know what their number is.
But I think they're around 10 to 11,000.
Yeah,
I believe you're
correct. They were down around 2, yeah. I think, if I remember the meetings we've had with Pasha, Majdi, and Karakiz, and now it's back up around 11.
How many different categories are there in there that you can charge for?
We have 5 different silos in ours, and that's
just 5.
Just
okay.
5. Yeah, that's the 5 that we chose.
And you're in 100% on 3 of them?
100% on 4 of them.
4 of them.
Yeah, the school board is the one we're not at 100%.
Okay.
Yeah.
Going back, Mike used the word code a while ago. What part of this process is in code besides allowing you to impose impact fees?
So this is very interesting. Impact fees, there is not anything in the state of West Virginia. I've been asking these questions. You guys know I'm a habitual line pusher. Just because I've been told we can't do something doesn't mean,
right.
Me and Height are a lot alike. We're going to always buck up against
I wouldn't go that far.
But, just because someone says they say you can't do it, well, who are they and why can't we do it?
Why not?
And how can we change that? So there's not a lot in West Virginia code about how impact fees are managed. There's no agency that oversees it. There's not a lot in federal code. It's mostly case law. It's mostly all federal case law. And Titchler and Bice is the company that really kind of oversees all this. So it's really been determined on what you can and can't do by lawsuits, people suing municipalities or counties. So that's kind of how it's regulated, is through case law. There's not a lot of state regulations or even federal regulations. So there's lots of people telling you what you can and can't do. And my question is is always, well, why can't we do that? Who says we can't do that? And how do we change it so we can do that?
Exactly. If some legislator way back when that put this in code to begin with, and we're all legislators, well, some of us are legislators now, and there's nothing that says we can't change it now.
No statute, lives in perpetuity.
That's exactly right.
And any statute that was made, even if it was made 100 years ago, it doesn't live in perpetuity. It can always be changed.
Exactly.
So my challenging questions are, well, if you say we can't spend this to do this, that who says and why? And so I'll continue to challenge that as we work through the process, not wanting to break the law, not wanting to get Berkeley County Commission in trouble, but we will continue to push against that. And I'm sure our legal counsel will get tired of hearing from me. But
how long will it be, John, until those impact fees are actually in the county's coffers and used?
So they will start being collected as soon as we put it in effect, whether that be in August, September, October, whenever that goes into effect, we'll start collecting those, and then they start going into their assigned silos, and then that money can start being drawn down and spent.
How do you address the budget when funds start to come in mid-budget, for instance?
That's probably a Gary Wines question. I don't really know. I mean, I know that those funds will come into, and I'm sure there will be a fund set aside for impact fees, and it may even be broken down into the individual silos, and then that money can probably just be influxed into the budget just through budget. What's the word I'm looking for? How when you're going through and kind of cleaning up your budget, reconciliation. Yeah, when you're just moving money around.
So at $5,000 something per residential unit plus whatever the commercial rate winds up being, what kind of funds are you projecting once this gets up and running for a full fiscal year?
Well, it all depends on how many homes we build. We've been trending 1,200 to 1,400 new homes per year, so that number. So I can't do that math in my head. I think we're somewhere around maybe $6 million a year. That's
Correct.
What we're anticipating.
Plus the commercial rate.
Yeah, whatever the commercial rate is. Like I said, that's still in play. So, and when I say $5,500 being an arbitrary number, I don't mean we just pulled that number out of the air. That's we feel that we're going to be somewhere between $5,000 and $6,000. So we put $5,500 in there because we have to have something to work off of.
Sure.
Now,
and I think that's probably where we're going to end up, close to somewhere's in there.
Yeah.
Joe Burton from Parks and Rec is looking to try to get you folks to put on the ballot a levy for Parks and Rec. Mm-hmm. What's the stomach right now in regards to the county commission, of which you are a member, for that?
Yeah, I can only speak for myself. I cannot speak for any other commissioner, and I've spoke on this show before, and I've been vocal about it that I would not support putting that levy on. We have identified. Listen, I love Parks and Rec, and Joe Burton has done a wonderful job over there. He has came in and fixed a lot of problems, and was able to spend a lot of money. That was money when they had money from COVID era. That money's gone. They're out of money. They need a revenue source. I agree with that 100%. But we have this new impact fee that's coming in. We've identified about $1.6 million that will go to Parks and Rec through the impact fee. We will be able to have almost 2 years of impact fees underneath our belt before their levy would even kick in. If it passed, I think it's very doubtful that levy would pass in a midterm election, needing 60% of the vote. I don't think that would vote.
But why not let the voters make that decision, John?
Well, Bill, if you really want to call me out on it, I'll tell you why. And here's why. Because with the current budget that the Parks and Rec has, with an additional $1.6 million that we've identified for them from the impact fees, and also we have some TIF funds that are going to be available because we have two TIF districts right now that are working. And then if they got an additional $6 million from the taxpayer, you have over a $11 million budget for Parks and Rec that has no oversight of any elected official. That's my number one drawback right there is you've got the school board has 3 members, the city has 3 members, and the county has 3 members. You have an ex officio county commissioner that oversees the board that has no voting right. I'm not going to give an agency or an organization in the county a $10 to $12 million budget from county coffers, county revenues, with no oversight from a elected official.
How much are you comfortable giving them without oversight?
I'm comfortable with giving the $1.6 million that we've identified from our impact fees and what their current budget is.
But you're making a good point, John. I don't mean to quibble and push back too hard, but I'm going to push back a little bit. The county is a growth county. The Parks and Rec for for eons has been underfunded from the county aspect. If the voters are so inclined to give Parks and Rec this revenue to do what everybody says we need, more recreation for the growing counties, why not do that? I can appreciate the fact of control, but we kind of need to back away from elected control over everything.
Well, in 8 years of politics, I've never had one taxpayer, one homeowner come to me and say they wanted to pay more taxes on their real property.
And they may not. And
right. And Bill, we cannot keep going back to the same people and asking and asking and asking. We keep going back to the same people, which are our property owners. We already asked them to give part of their property tax to the state. They give a smaller portion, another portion to the county. Then they give 77 cents of every dollar of that goes to the school board. And I'm not complaining about that. I'm just saying, understand that our taxpayers have the state portion, the county portion. They have a school levy, an excess levy, a bond, a fire fee, an ambulance fee, a stormwater fee. Now we're going to ask them for a Parks and Rec fee.
But now you're not coming about this a little bit different. It's not as we're coming to ask the voters or the individuals to give additional money. We're just giving them the right to make that decision themselves. That's all we're doing. We give them the right to make that decision.
I'm not saying it's a little hypocritical, but I'm saying I'm the duly elected official, and I'm saying I don't want to give an agency that type of budget without any oversight, and I don't want to keep going back and asking our taxpayers over and the same ones over and over and over. That's why the sales tax, the 1% sales tax, makes so much sense, because you're drawing that money from other people. You're not going back to the same people to draw that money. You're drawing a lot of that money from pass-through economy. You're drawing a lot of that money through the cash economy. You're drawing that money from people or have the ability to kind of spend their own money the way they want to spend it. But we cannot, there's nothing that I hate more than this rain tax that we're collecting, the county collects, And we're working with Shelley Moore Capito's office. Chris Strovel has been facilitating a lot of this. We're working with the EPW, which is the Environmental and Public Works Committee that Senator Capito chairs, and we're going back in and looking at some of these MS4 permits and trying to skinny those down or maybe try to move away from them. But we cannot continue to go back to the same taxpayers.
The other thing. Our Parks and Rec is one of the best in the state of West Virginia.
They do a wonderful job.
And under Steve Catlett's leadership, it grew. It was great. And now they're about to get $1.5 to $2 billion additional in their budget, and we need to see how they can spend that and what they do with that before we just start giving them.
That's purposely directed money for a capital budget, though. And if you're adding another park, you're adding operating expenses, and this doesn't help fund that.
And that's completely true. So
Sure.
that money is for capital. That money is not for operations, and that's where their shortfall is in operations. And also, they have a huge shortfall in maintenance. So listen, they're under the thumb and they have a tough job to do. I want to give the impact fee some time before I'm going to go and give them the ability for a levy.
Exactly.
We're
10 seconds, Bill.
Confusing a lot of things. You mentioned the rain tax. The voters did not have a say on the rain tax.
No, they did not, and neither did the county, and neither did the state.
Exactly.
That's a federal overreach.
But my point is, they would have a say in the excess levy for the Parks and Rec.
And on that note, we must stop.